Hello everyone and welcome back to another double feature. This time it's the two releases, the big releases that came out on Christmas Day. It's one of those weeks where Christmas Day falls at the beginning of the week so we can make an extended week-long box office run, blah blah blah, whatever. You know, we just had movies come out December 22nd, now some come out December 25th. What's the real difference? They're all gonna eat Aquaman's lunch in week 2. And they're all gonna trounce the boys in the boat, which we're not talking about. I thought about it, but I'm like, here's my review. I'm not gonna see it. No one's gonna see it. It's not a real movie. But we're talking about The Color Purple and Ferrari. Two movies, they're very interesting to talk about. One of them more so in particular. I think we'll start with this movie called The Color Purple. Now this is a retelling of the classic tale, as the trailers have been saying for years, I guess it'd be like a year now the trailer's been out. A bold new take on the classic. This is based on the musical, based on the book, if I'm not mistaken. Because this was a stage production, wasn't it? The Color Purple was on stage for some capacity. I think that's the case. And they did like a musical direction of it because this movie is a musical, which makes sense to me. Like, this is one of those classic works where, like, if you wanted to do like a modern retelling of it, you could definitely see how like Broadway producers like, what about a musical of The Color Purple? That's kind of Hamilton-y. If it's before or after Hamilton, I don't know. I didn't look it up. But, you know, Danielle Brooks is also on, like, the stage production, so it can't be that far off. It's got to be a pretty recent adaptation. The original movie was pretty interesting. It's an early Spielberg where he's like, I can do this serious stuff too. And a modern reboot of it, it makes sense. You know, when you have people like Oprah Winfrey also producing this version and Quincy Jones also producing this version, I'm positive something good can come from that. And this movie is pretty damn good. Like, it's far from my favorite of the year, and I don't think it's like a perfect movie. I enjoyed every aspect of it. I can tell you realistically that there is absolutely nothing wrong with the movie. There's just been more interesting and thought-provoking and creative pieces to come out, but this is not me telling you not to watch it. If you're going to go to the cinemas this holiday season, this is one I would take your family to because it's uplifting, it's positive, it's interesting. It looks great. It's got a beautiful cast, and it's really fun. It's a strong movie. And just in like a year of strong movies, this one can maybe be like lost in the shuffle and maybe not be particularly like special to everybody. But it's a very fine adaptation of the original source material, I guess. I did see some criticisms that it kind of like shoos away from more of the more like interesting romantic relations to the Seeley character. I have never read the original source material, so I don't know any of that for true. But from critics I trust who are like, this is a fine adaptation, I'll believe those people. And from black critics I also trust where they're like, this kind of leans away from some of the important aspects, I see where that could be coming from. Because there are some heavy moments in this movie. We spend time in the heavy moments, but we also kind of want you to be like surrounded by like the razzle dazzle, the flash, and the substance is not the biggest aspect of this movie, which is kind of interesting. You'd think for this story, the biggest aspect should be the substance. It should be like we're watching Seeley's life when she's a young woman who is essentially molested by her father figure to when she comes into her own life and she can finally be her own individual woman. You'd think that should be like the main story. And look, that is the story, so that's there. But we don't get a lot of like intimate moments with her. The intimate moments are through the song. And that's the point, because a musical, the intimate moment should be the song. But they're not like these, I am talking to myself in these intimate moment songs. They're always like loud and bombastic. And I say that, but I don't hate it. You know, I think it works for the most part. It definitely feels like we're doing the more flashy thing than the more intimate thing. And that might be the detriment to this being like a staying power where you're like, oh yeah, finally, like this is the adaptation I've been looking for. I think if you are somebody who has seen both of them, you could easily pick the other one over this one. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, like this is still a good movie. That's still a good movie. It's fine. I'm very mixed on this movie because I want to sit here and praise it solely for everything that it's about. Because I do like the story. It's a very interesting and poignant story. The cinema I saw this in did have a lot of families there of children who can learn from this and experience something joyful and interesting and see how life was like in a different time period, see how people were treated in a different time period. And I really do think that's interesting. And the music is all very good, if not a little bit kind of iffy, where it's like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a musical expert, because I'm not. I know very little about like the rhythm of music, the tempos you're supposed to go to. There are some moments where it definitely feels like this doesn't perfectly like fit the beat we're going for, and the lyrics kind of just trail off in a different direction. I don't know. That kind of was like, okay, I mean, it's fine. It's definitely that more like modern, like we're kind of like talking through what we're feeling in terms of song, as opposed to like the implication of like this is a metaphor to what's happening in our lives. It's fine. Fantasia Barrino, if that's how you say her name, she plays Celie as the adult version, who's our main character. And she's an actress I know very little about. I'm sure she's more of like an unknown figure. You want to get somebody that can fully commit to this version of a character. She's phenomenal in this. Like, very clearly familiar with this material, knows how to play this. This woman who, for most of her life, is, destitute in a situation she cannot escape from, only to find her own agency, only to find her escape through this woman that she loves. And I've also heard criticisms that, the Celie is, in the book, more than anything, portrayed as a lesbian character, and that's kind of glanced over. There are key moments in this movie where it's not, but it's not a part of her character we delve into, and other interpretations of this material play more into that, and I understand how that could be upsetting to some people. I just think Fantasia, she does very good with this material. She has a great voice. She has a very, she has a very interesting presence on screen where you cannot look away from her. She is just commanding the room. Even when she's like the submissive person in the scene, you can tell there's a lot going on there that she is not exploring, and is just hiding behind like this facade. It's very interesting. She's fantastic in this. A strong lead, a great performance that is only like amplified by the great performances around her. Like Taraji P. Henson, who I adore to no end. She shows up in this movie and it's just like, here's a song about the perfect woman coming to town and freaking everybody out. And it's great. And she is just phenomenal in that. And I think she's one of the most underexplored characters in this, where they want to do stuff with her, but they don't. I get that. It's kind of a hard balance to like weave, where it's like, do we want to lean more into like the musical? Here's like Suge showing up being like this cool lady, or do you want this to be more about Celie finding her independence and not really being connected to Suge as the woman she falls in love with? It's a weird balance. And then Danielle Brooks, who did play this role on the stage production, crushes it. Like, she has such a good presence. She is so interesting to watch on screen. The confidence, the swagger, the attitude, she's got it. She had the girth, as Scorsese would say about Fraser. She is so talented, and it just commands the scene when she is in it. Powerful. What happens to that character is gut-wrenching and terrifying, but she comes out on top unscathed in some capacity while still dealing with her stuff. Just amazing. She does great. I adore what that woman did. And I think some of the male supporting leads are very interesting too. Coleman Domingo is having a great year. Like, this role, my opinion, better than his work in Rustin. Not a movie I like. I didn't talk about Rustin because I'm like, okay, I know what that is. It's fine. It's probably going to get a lot of awards contention, I think, but he's so good in this. Like he is a broken man from the beginning who only learns to heal himself as he gets older, which you love to see. And Corey Hawkins just picking his roles well. Like, the guy, he could be a leading man. He's really good at just like showing up with a supporting aspect and delivering some good shit there. The set design, immaculate. It looks great. Production design, it's really cool too. I love the costuming. I love the designs for everything. It looks really cool. It just doesn't come together in a very perfect way. There are scenes where you're like, we could have maybe cut this out, made it tighter. There are moments where you're like, I wish this just played a little more interestingly in a different direction. But I don't hate this movie at all. It's a gorgeous movie. It's really interesting. If you haven't read the original material, if you haven't seen the original Spielberg movie, or if you even haven't seen like the Broadway production, this gets the message across well. It's definitely doing like the more flashy musical vibe, which is fine. But, you know, maybe I would have just liked to see like a straight up, you know, classic adaptation as opposed to doing like the bold new take. That being said, the cinematography is well. The camera moves really interestingly, and it's a great adaptation of that material. Do I think it would be more interesting in other ways? I do. I think you could find it better, but Fantasia is a presence on screen, and I would not take that away at all for anything. I do think this is the feel-good movie of the holiday season, and everyone should watch it. So, The Color Purple, I am going to give a 7 out of 10. Now let's switch gears for a second, no pun intended, and hop over to another really insane movie to come out this year called Ferrari. This is the new film from director Michael Mann, who has been absent for a while. Was Black Hat his last movie? That one was like a decade ago, so it doesn't feel like this is his most, like, that can't be his most recent one. He made one after Black Hat, right? I can't remember. Michael Mann, this has been his passion project for decades. He has always wanted to be the guy to tell the story of Enzo Ferrari, which, sure, man, you think you could do it? Go ahead. What I do think is very interesting is he wanted to do like less of the biopic thing, which is, that's not really his style. Even when he did like Inside Man, was it Inside Man? The one about like it doesn't matter. Even like his last kind of like real life story one, it wasn't like specifically like the child growing up to become the man. It's like we're staying in a specific place in this guy's life. This is in 1957. It's post-war. The Ferrari company is kind of like losing money. They need to win more races. And people are starting to realize that maybe, you know, Ferrari does have a bastard son he's not really like recognizing in the public. And now people are starting to think there's something else going on that way. That's Mann's wheelhouse, okay? Like, Michael Mann, a director, he's so interesting. He's a guy who just like perfectly made the switch to digital cameras because he's like, oh, I can do this all in focus. Like, I know exactly how to switch focus from a scene to a scene, from a character to a character. I know how to light things perfectly for digital cameras. I know how to make this look really good. He was one of those guys that just got the digital technology right away and he perfected it. And my God, does he make this movie look insane? This movie looks amazing. Like, it is such a beautiful thing. Like, every shot where we're looking over the shoulder of Adam Driver onto the sequence, it's beautiful. Every time like somebody is in the focus in the background, we have something else going on. It looks gorgeous. It just has a specific style that is so purely man. You just love to see it. And then it's just a really weird story about this guy dealing with the ramifications of his own actions. It's just like looking at like, I have to be this proud, strong man, and it breaks me inside because everything around me is crumbling, and if I lose the facade of power, I lose the grip of everything. And that's like a really interesting thing to explore that Michael Mann clearly likes to talk about, and it never becomes this moment where it's like, here's like a big moment where Driver breaks down in the performance, and he's like openly weeping at every scene. It's quiet moments of a man just looking at his dead son's grave and being like, I don't know how to keep doing this. I'm going to try. You know, just like those quiet moments. And my God, is that just so compelling to see? It is so compelling. And here, before we go any further, here's the most interesting part about this movie that I cannot talk about this without my mind going like, what the fuck happened here? Because I have to say this, and I have seen some people talking about it online, not too many, but I'm not the first person to make this note. What was going on with the audio? It's insane. Like, there are so many just like random sequences where the Foley work is so loud and like it's just commanding every single scene. When we're putting dishes down or we're walking in dirt, it's louder than anything else you've ever heard. It's not blending into the sequence. It is the sequence. It is such weird Foley work where it's like, do we like make the microphone volume louder every time we did something? That was like, it happens so much. And then there's sequences where people are just talking and you can hear like the dead air and static being picked up on the microphones where it's not being blurred out. It's just so clearly picking up the silence in the room through the microphones, and you could hear it when people are talking. And then there's certain moments where it's like they're wearing like a lav mic or something and it's like kind of picking up when they're turning their heads, kind of like I'm doing now. You can hear like the difference from like talking directly into the mic to talking away from it. It happens more than once in the movie to different characters. There's specific sequences where like Penelope Cruz is talking so quietly, it's barely registering on whatever microphone is around her. And the last line of the fucking movie has like Adam Driver blowing out the mic. Like it's picking up so loud, you can hear like the blow up of the mic. And I'm like, what is happening? And I know it's just not like my theater, because there's pretty good sound in the theater I saw this in, but I was just sitting there like, what is happening? Why are we like hearing like these dishes clanking together so loudly where we can't hear anybody talking over it? Utterly insane. It was just so weird the way the audio sounded in this. Like nobody was perfectly speaking into the microphone, where we like rose the levels up where we could hear the static and dead air behind every word. It's so bizarre. And that is like a choice, because everything else is just like perfectly edited. Like there's a weird pace to this movie, and it's like a weirdly tight script of like this man breaking apart, and it's just so bizarre. Like that's what worked through it. Like that's the audio. Do we not have enough time to get different audio tracks where we had to like raise the levels on the ADR so we could like hear it better? Did they have to record ADR in like a cupboard? Is that what happened? It's so bizarre. It almost like distracts the movie completely, but the entire time you have this silver fox Adam Driver just walking in with like an almost Muppety accent, just being like, all right, I'm the guy of the world and everything's good for me, but it's not good for me and I have to pretend it's good for me. I'm okay. These drivers suck. It's crazy. Shailene Woodley's in this. Rarely get to talk about her. She's pretty good. But my standout performance, I actually have two. Silver Fox Patrick Dempsey. That's the reason you're the sexiest man alive, because we put you in little goggles and gloves and put you in a little car. You look like a fucking snack, dude. Like, oh my goodness, adorable and cute to no end. Amazing. And then Penelope Cruz, my God. Just, she looks so tired, like she has bags under her eyes. She's just wielding a gun, shoots it randomly, and it's just like, I'm unhappy. Do whatever the hell you want. You made a joke out of me in my life. Burn in hell. I was enraptured by her to no end. She is definitely going to sneak onto my best supporting list. Just crazy. She was just so commanding, and just listening to her like describe how you like spell out a name, and she looks dead-eyed inside staring at like a bank teller. You're just like, oh my God. Epic. Like, what a weird, intense movie with the worst audio I've heard in any movie ever, but it also has like some really good racing effects, and like the cars move really well, and like the shoddy CGI gets like washed out by like the horrific events that happen because of it. It's kind of perfect in like a really disturbed way. Like if you're like an insane movie person, this is the one I'd say to watch. I think The Color Purple is a more interesting movie to like show your family, and you're gonna have like a better time watching it. You'll be like, oh yeah, the world's great. But Ferrari is like, what the fuck is happening to this audio? Why does this movie look so good? And what the hell's happening to any of these characters? It's so perfect in like a bizarre way. I kind of love it in a stupid type of movie energy. But that audio is so bizarre to me. I hope it's not just my theater, because I want people to experience that too. Man, what are you doing? Very strange. The racing looks great. It's such a weird one. I kind of think it's perfect in a really sadistic, insane way. So Ferrari, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this double feature. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.